Hey, welcome to a very special episode of Maximum Driftcast. We are not doing our usual goofy intros this time, and we're cutting all the slack, which means no Corey Hosford this week. I think he's back home, stuck in Phoenix, probably drowning in a bathtub full of spaghetti meatballs.
Like crying marinara.
Yeah, crying marinara, yep. And instead of Corey, we actually have a very good live guest here, which is the co-founder, right?
Yep.
Of Formula Drift, and that's Ryan Sage.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so Ryan, why drifting?
Why drifting? Why the word? Why choose it?
Out of everything.
Why choose it as a job?
Yeah, well, why? Let's start at the beginning. What happened?
Oh, the beginning story. Go like all the way back.
So you were born.
Oh, you want to go that? You want to go all the way? You want to go back to insemination and then how I?
I mean, let's talk about the night your parents. No, so drifting started in America. You guys, Formula Drift wasn't the initial first event, right? There was other little exhibition events, and there was also, I don't know, the chronology of D1.
Yeah. The beginning is there was a kind of an underground culture of drifting that was going on that wasn't organized here. Some small events. There was Falcon had an event that was going on around the same time that we started getting involved in it. My partner Jim and I, we had a marketing company before we were doing this, and the whole goal of that was to kind of help companies that were coming into this market, and they'll just use the broad term there, so they didn't do anything stupid and then want to back out and not support this industry and things like that. So we worked with Mazda and JC Whitney and eBay Motors to try to help them develop programs that would make sense for this type of market. But our background experience was events. Jim's was on the IDRC side, did drag racing, and I worked at Hot Import Nights for a number of years. And we had heard that there was this Japanese group, called D1, which everybody knows, that was looking to do an event in the U.S. So we're like, we got to get on this. This is awesome, And so we charged up the Amex, spent what money we had, and Jim went over and gave the big pitch to those guys, and somehow or another we walked away with the opportunity to do the first event for them here. And so we did a D1 kind of preview event, a driver search type of deal, and then we did the D1 event.
And when you say do the event for D1, what does that mean? Like they counted on you to execute it? And
yeah. Basically, we run everything from A to B, and then they show up with the judges and the drivers and do the show. And a lot of people remember that. Some people that are new to the scene may not remember that, but that was 2003. And then we had we saw there was a really big opportunity for this motorsport at that time. It was a sold-out show at Irwindale, which back then for Irwindale was insane. And everybody's like, what is this sport? And there was the Reese Millens and Samuel Hubinetts and Vaughn Gittin Jr.'s that a lot of these guys were like, there's got to be something for us. But those guys were not respected back then in the way that they are now by the Japanese guys. I mean, that's just being frank. They did not think that those guys could have a series of their own. Mm-hmm. And we said they could have a series of their own, and you guys should let us license your brand from you and let us produce a series for you because we've got experience and we can do the stuff. And they're like, we're not interested in that. This is a one-time thing for us. We're gone. So we said, hey, okay, fine. Just to give you the heads up, we're going to start our own brand. They're like, have fun with it. It'll be dead in a year.
So they actually said, have fun. It'll be dead in a year. And they well, maybe not those words, but they didn't trust you guys, or they didn't believe in the sport in America enough to.
That was the impression that we got. I mean, that's just my take on things. Is that it was. At the very minimum, they did not want to do a U.S. series initially.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is there wasn't even like pro-ams, right?
There may have been drift days. There may have been Taka and some guys doing some local stuff, but the things that were formulated and organized were very, very small.
Yeah, so it's not like you could just like go and grab the best drivers from all the pro-ams. Like it was probably some kind of like you guys had to go and search.
Yeah, how did you get the word out to the Vaughns and the Hubinetts?
We spoke to a lot of those guys, and there was some initial, and if you remember way back in the day, there was some initial interest from GM who was supporting doing a factory effort with Reese, and that kind of got people interested. That got Yokohama interested in supporting the series, and we were friendly with Road Atlanta because Jim and I had done some events there in the past, and we spoke to them and said, would you guys be willing to host an event? And they said, yeah. And so, all right, cool. We're going to work on some drivers. We're going to work on a 4-event schedule. and see what we can come up with. And if you remember back then, it's not like how it is now where there's, probably thousands of drifters across the world. I mean, we were doing a top 16 competition back then, and I can't remember how many actually people we were qualifying, but it's not the way that it was now.
Yeah, and it was solo runs too. Was there tandem at all?
There was tandem,
yeah. I'm just used to I think I watched like an old Long Beach video trying to find like the earliest FD media, and like all I could find was like single runs and seeing all the more eclectic cars. Like who drove the Camaro, like the old school Camaro?
It was the Falcon.
Yeah, it was like
well, that was Ryan Hampton.
Yeah,
that was like a like a custom kind of freak build that they did. But even before that car, I think you had the very controversial Samuel Hubinet competition Viper. Yeah, so him and Reese were kind of like the big shots in year one, along with some of the guys that had the Southern California programs that were trying to get in the mix. You had Vaughn and his program bringing it out and stuff like that. So very, very organic and new at that time, obviously. But somehow or another, we got it off the ground.
Well, let's kind of go into that. So that year that Sam Hubinet brought what essentially was as an ACR, what class Viper was it?
Well, it was what they called a competition coupe,
right?
Which is basically, it had some modifications to the chassis, which made it kind of controversial. We ended up outlawing it because it did seem a little bit over the top.
Was it outlawed after the season or mid-season?
I don't remember, and our rule book back then was nothing like it is now.
Right.
So I just remember that after that year, he came back with a regular Viper.
So how does, I guess this goes with any racing league, but now that you have a real rule book and you see people trying to stretch the rules, which there's nothing against that. Obviously, that's how racing advances. That's how you see Formula One and other series move forward. You see someone stretching the definitions of what's allowed, and maybe that getting banned, or maybe that gets somehow massaged into being allowed. Like, how do you, as a series coordinator, founder, executive, like, how do you figure out what is allowed, what's not, moving forward? Like who this season is doing something weird that you're already looking at, I guess, is a better
this
question.
Season?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people that have done stuff that will the tech manager might be shaking his head when they roll up, and they'll end up getting it fixed, but there are some people that go down a certain road that they're advised not to. They end up going down that road, and then they bring it to us, and we have to take a look at what is going to be needed to get done in order for that person to compete. And it might mean you've got to change this, or you need to do that. There are usually not concessions, but there are things that will be put in place in order for that person to compete under the spirit of the rules. A rule book is words, essentially, right? But there is a spirit behind it as well, and an intention behind it about what do we want to see on course, and how do we be accountable to the rest of the team so they feel good about what we're doing tech-wise. And you guys may not know this, but the way that we've advanced in tech over the years, I think we're at our best possible point right now. Kevin Wells is a tremendous asset to our team. He talks constantly to the teams and drivers to understand exactly where things are going, what things should be implemented. And I think if you asked any of those guys in the series, they would say Kevin gives us a fair shake.
Yeah, and one of the things, I'm excited to remember, like the vehicles you guys used to have. Like there was like an El Camino, and there was cars with automatic transmissions.
Yeah,
I mean you guys even had an Element.
Yeah. Paco's the weird vehicle specialist. If you didn't already know, he owns a Riata. He's got the Previa drift van, so he's into the weird stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, that's me. I'm sorry.
What Paco?
But
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was saying, but I mean, so it's kind of cool, to see all these different vehicles that are not like the usual stuff. But at the same time, you guys want to give the people a good show. So what part of the rules it's actually made into catering what people wants to see, and what part is really into like not trying to give anybody like some kind of advantage? Because I mean, in this series, you don't qualify who's the fastest or who's a it's at the end, it's about style. And we have cars from 600 horses to 1,200 horses going at each other. Yeah. And your results can be completely opposite of what you would think. So really what defines like, okay, this is not allowed because that's just not going to be...
impressive looking?
Or not impressive, but it's like, no, like, for example, an example is, I think it was a couple years ago, Vaughn Getting he got penalized for having some mounting points, like I think at 3/4 of an inch, out of the position where it was, what it was supposed to be from factory, and that was like he had a fee or something like that. So how is that actually translated into, well, you can't do that because that's clearly giving you an advantage, or the other way, like, well, it's not because of that, just because we're trying to keep the cars as stock as possible and please the crowd. So how's that?
No, it's a good question, and definitely follow up with some more pointed questions if I don't answer this the way I want to. But when you decide that you're going to not have a spec series and lean on the side of sexiness, which is the fact that you can have
on the side of sexiness. Sorry, is that what you tell people in like in the driver meetings? Guys, we're going to be leaning on the side of sexiness this year.
Well, that's what drifting.
More lace.
That's the way that I perceive drifting to be in its structure right now, and from the beginning, is that there are basically no rules that are similar to other motorsports in terms of the containment side of things, in terms of the chassis, in terms of the tire that you can use, in terms of power adders that you can use. And all of those things create a spectacle. That said, that also makes the technical job very, very challenging, because it goes back to a very typical thing that a lot of people understand in racing, is that money can buy you results. Now, that doesn't always come into fruition in drifting, because there is the skill aspect that comes into place, and there's always the unknown and the fact that you're driving next to another driver. So I think it can generally get you better results, but it doesn't always get you there. But I think we feel more comfortable erring on the side of the sexiness of drifting than saying everybody's got to run Hankook, everybody's got to run Nexen, we're capping horsepower, you must use stock this, you must use this kind of fuel, and having it be open is at this point in time at least the better way to do it from our perspective.
What do you think of, Paco, what league is it that it just banned cars 20 years older?
I think it was D1, wasn't it?
It was actually, I believe it's one of the European groups.
Yeah, that's right. King of Europe.
How do you feel about that?
And I don't know if it was King of Europe, so I don't want to.
Yeah.
But it's one of those.
But
right?
I believe it's. I mean,
it's
we might
one of the
be
European
wrong.
groups. I think it might be BDC. I'm okay with that to a certain degree. You want. At the end of the day, you want longevity for drivers and teams, and that will mean trying to go out and cut deals with manufacturers, and manufacturers are only going to cut deals with you if you are using a product that they sell.
Yeah.
But that said, there is no clear demarcation line. This is the day that you do it. You think it's probably more of a slow transition if you ever get to there. And there's also the case to be made that there is a legacy aspect here. I mean, you see cars like Honda Dells, and you're like, well, man, that car is so beautiful, and it's still incredibly built. That still plays a factor here, So I don't think we're anywhere near that, but it's a good conversation starter. And I think for, long term, you want to have cars that are within a certain range.
Right. Angry fans be damned. Not that you're going to implement this tomorrow.
Yeah.
But would the series grow faster, gain more popularity, be more commercially viable if you were to tomorrow say, or next season say, no cars older than 10 years old?
I don't know if we would be immediately commercially viable at a greater degree than what we are now just by doing that, because I think that there are other substantive things that need to occur within our industry and other industries in order for people to have the right opportunities to monetize. And some of those things are, and this is just my personal opinion, this is not me speaking for the company as a whole, but
right.
Some of those things are, I feel that there is still a disconnect between mainstream automotive and automotive motorsports about what this sport is all about. We get it. Young people get it. We get tens of thousands of people out to our event. We get tons of people watching online, tons of people engaging. But there are only a few progressive marketers that understand the power of that. There's still a lot of the old guard that has not embraced what this is. And I think part of that is that the essence of drifting and the premise of drifting, that it is subjective, that it is judged, is really, really hard for traditional motorsport people that are point A to point B, just whoever goes faster and gets from point A to point B faster. Pretty basic concept. Drifting is way more technically challenging to understand that. You need to know the nuance. You have to actually do your research. You can't just walk into it and say, I know everything about the sport. It actually takes some time to do it. But I think that's why it's so cultish in a certain type of way. So if we can bridge that gap by and I've heard you guys talk about this, by giving judges more tools that are objective facts.
That was my next question, was when I talked to Jared about that. He's almost scared to answer for FD because it's a very touchy subject, is, you know, on judging in general. But yeah, how do you feel about giving them and forgive me if you've done this before, because I've only been in the sport for like 3 years, and I know you guys have already tried stuff and thrown it out and all that, but if you had a camera that was not a definite you get awarded points, you don't get awarded points, but at least something that shows that this driver A in tandem, got closer to outer wall B than this driver, and in a situation where it would be a dead heat, like this gives them the advantage.
Let me give you just like a little bit of background research on what we've done in this topic, and maybe that'll help, you know, point the direction a little bit. When you start looking at telemetry, data coming off cars, anything that's tracking vehicles, and is able to produce something that you can look at and say, this is what's going on at this particular time, you realize that very quickly, as you start getting more granular, that it is a potential black hole about what information you're getting and what judgment you are making from that based on that information. There is no algorithm, at least that I can tell, where you can capture the vehicle's movement relative to the other vehicle's movement, take all the measurements, the angle, plug in formulas, and then say driver X is going to win.
Right.
I don't think that exists yet, and I don't know that you would ever want to go that direction. But there is existing technology, whether it's through Motec or other companies, and that we've done years of research on to try to figure out what formulas and what data you can get off cars in real time, and also display that to fans and the judges so that you can say, this is what happened on course with this car. And I'll give a perfect example, right? What's one of the most controversial things that happens in the sport all the time? It's who's at fault for contact, right?
Yeah.
Well, there is an objective fact of the matter about who's at fault for contact, but a lot of times we're using our subjective eyes or tools like braking and things like that, the lights, to try to determine that. But we all know that there are ways that you can slow vehicles without actually using the brakes.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
there's
less
technique.
acceleration and more depth in your line. There's 1,000 ways.
Totally. And so you can get those measurements, right? You can get a deceleration and acceleration, and you could be able to get that to be able to tell a story. But I don't think it's going to be able to tell you an answer. It's just going to be able to tell you what actually is going on with the cars.
But how much of that it's actual like driving style versus actually like competing? You know,
Yeah,
like
that's the question.
in all kinds of competition, you always kind of like try to psych your competitor. You know, like trying to see. It's not just the driving. It's like being ready to. It's literally a battle. That's why it's called a battle, right? So, at what point, you know, like something that its style becomes like,
overly aggressive,
yeah.
like when we were talking with Osbo, that gray area of like what is considered sportsmanlike, what is considered unsportsmanlike, and what is downright dirty,
or
cheating, or doing something intentionally to make someone hit you.
Or even like what happened to Hanadel in Formula Drift Canada, that he was pulling way too much angle, and they were saying like,
and
it's
which the
looking
fans
awesome,
love.
but yeah, the fans were like going crazy, but the judges were like, no, it's way too much angle. And then like the people, like I remember watching comments about it, and people were like, what the hell, you know, like that was awesome. And so,
well, a lot of that could be solved with data. And I don't think it would make it less sexy, because my personal vote would be, you get the data, you show everybody the data in something that's very easy to digest, and you still let the judges make a decision.
Right.
Now, most of the times that decision is probably going to go with the data, but you know, you still allow that to happen so it keeps the sexiness of the sport. A perfect example is we could drop pins on a track and say this is the line, right? And you use GPS to track the line. You have sensors on the cars, and it will tell you. We come up with a measurement that says you go from 0 to 100% of driving the line at any given time. Okay, and it starts at this point and it ends at this point. And the driver goes through, and he's driving through, and he's at 87, he's at 79, he's at 64, and he ends at 72. And that would give you a 72% of the time I was on the correct line.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be something objective that you could do.
That takes away so much of the spirit of the sport, I would say.
So you know, and that's there's an argument to be made for that. You could also give constant angle, and you could show people at the end he had an average angle of X. There are ways to cheat that, obviously, because around the last corner in say Texas, for example, Forrest could throw some big crazy angle, and the rest of his angle was good, but then he just got a few more percentage points because he maxed it out at the end when you don't really need to. So it's not an easy question, but
it's the hardest question maybe.
Yeah, my main point is that I think there needs to be something there that is easy to understand, that can get through to people in a very, very clear way, but not take away from the sexiness of the sport.
And that is something that you guys are currently have on the drawing board? Like where are you sitting at the home office right now?
We're like 2.5 years in, and like the whole thing I was saying about the black hole is like the example of GPS, right? Like, so GPS, from my understanding and the research that we've done, is really only as accurate depending on how many satellites you have of what's above you. So there could be a possibility where somebody could drive the line, and the line is not necessarily a 1-inch line or a 10-inch line or whatever. And you could have some variance on degree between driver A and driver B, and they would definitely be driving different lines, but they would get the same score. And that's how you mislead people.
Right.
So you want to be careful of that too. That's the whole point about the black hole.
So just so it's clear, what are the judges looking at right now? So they see the run. They have the same cameras that the live stream sees, essentially, as they're playing back, and they can play those back anytime they want, as long as they want, essentially, within reason. Yeah,
we don't want to do the as long as they want thing, because there's a show to think about, and we want to give them. We don't want them to feel as if we're telling them what they need to do, but they do obviously understand that, look, at the end of the day, for this to work long term, it's got to be a show that it can be concise. You guys got to come to a conclusion, and they've been okay about that for the most part. But what we typically do is we basically say run, replay, and if it's something that they really need to nitpick at, we'll allow them to look at it a little bit more granularly. And then that's it, and they can look at any of the cameras that we have for the most part.
So that's it, but again, those are just the cameras that we're seeing on the live stream. So like 3 or 4 camera guys.
Yeah, whatever you guys are seeing. Yeah.
How does it? It's a weird question. How does it make you feel? But how does it feel when you hear and see angry fans that say, "Oh, look, it shows on my cell phone right here from the other end of the track because they have a different vantage than your camera. It shows right here that driver A had 3 tires off when they said there's only 1 tire off because they could only see on their camera that there was 1 tire." What does that do to you guys in the judging booth?
I mean, it's natural. I mean, the question is, what would that person have done had he been in the same shoes as the judges? He probably would have voted the way that they voted. Of course, if there's another perspective that's capturing something that they could not see, you want to try to plug that gap as best you can. But there's limitations, I mean, as we grow, we try to add more things. And all these courses are so different and unique that it's not like a baseball stadium where every single schematic about where you lay a camera is going to be the same. Right. There's going to be challenge and there's going to be holes potentially. But, you try to plug them the best you can, and it's what comes with the territory. Would it make the sport harder or worse? Would it be more difficult? Would it spend more time on each decision to just do accelerometer, or at least just throttle position and maybe just a G meter to show braking and forward moves, so that way you could see if someone was sandbagging, so to say? Those are some of the easy ones. Yeah, and I think that those could be implemented pretty quickly. Yeah.
Do you plan on it? Where are you guys at with those two?
Accelerometer G meter is something that could be done not this year, but definitely pretty soon. I think maybe next year potentially.
Yeah, because I think at least that would possibly dispel half of the arm raising screaming that we've had over the past couple seasons, is just having that extra information. But I know, of course, like you said, the black hole, once you begin, where is
it's also how do you get it to the public, right? You want to be able to have a way to get it to the public in real time and be able to tell a story, not just, hey, this is what it said, you better believe me.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I had an experience probably 3 or 4 years ago where I was just like commenting on Facebook, and it was like just like a lot of disagreement with the judges. And I remember that you actually just chimed in and like, hey, guys, before like you guys go crazy, here's my explanation. And you were commenting back and forth with everybody who kept asking questions, and you were trying to to say like, hey, I at a certain point even I don't agree with the judges on certain things. Yeah. But that's one of the cool things that I've noticed, that you're very open to try to explain things to people. You don't like most, I don't know if you watch any other kind of series of racing, like you
don't expect the
people who work
the
there,
founder to
especially the founder is going to be
Instagram.
like, he's like, I don't care about these people. And on the contrary, you're always being one of those guys that are like constantly looking what's around your series,
and have infinite patience with some of the people on Instagram that you're not going to get through to a lot of them, Ryan. But you keep trying. You want them to understand. You want them to care. I see.
I have a long and storied history of engaging with fans and coming to it with good intentions. You guys may not remember this, and he'll probably kill me for saying this, but there used to be a very active forum, drifting.com. Where
Paco knows. I don't know about this though.
Where everybody would go and talk about these things, and there was a relative state of anonymity on that, but for the most part, everybody kind of knew who everybody was. That does not have the same impact that doesn't have the same impact or functionality that Instagram has per se in if you are anonymous. For some particular reason, I don't really know why, but I've always been cool about engaging with fans and trying to give our perspective or clarify areas that are just clear misinformation. But there's some instances where people front load so much with intention in this sport that we are the bad guy and we are corrupt and we sponsor.
Yeah, because you take so much money from all these corporate sponsors.
Right, sponsors control what we say. Our presenting sponsor for years is GoPro, and Tyler McQuarrie never won a championship. So you have some inconsistency when you start looking at things rationally, but. And that's okay. That's just the nature of human behavior. But I love engaging with people and having discussions with them. And most times it ends up being like a really cool topic,
Yeah.
So
it's just crazy, like the typical comments on any judged run. It just becomes like literally like YouTube's comment section. Just, like, people just throwing shit at each other, and it just becomes a battle of I am right. It doesn't even matter.
My favorite analogy is that you can play chess with a pigeon and you could beat it very easily, checkmate pigeon. But the pigeon is still going to stomp all over the board, shitting and knocking over all the pieces, acting like it won. So I feel like that must be at least maybe a little bit what it feels like. And obviously that this is a fan-driven sport like anything, and it's incredible how transparent I've at least seen you be. And then usually I could say that the times I've seen threads where you've commented politely and respectfully to people, they usually respond, but there's still the guys that are just when their guy wins, everything is right in the world, but the second their guy loses, it's conspiracy, the Drift Alliance, the Falcon Tire team, there's always some sort of conspiracy. I mean, I guess, do you want to say right now, Ryan, on the record, that there is no drifting conspiracy? But that's what you would say if there was. Shit.
Yep,
damn
that's right. No, I've always thought that a really good PhD thesis would be a study of drifting from a personal psychology, cognitive bias, epistemological standpoint, because it is everything that you would want to write a paper on when it comes to those topics.
It's human emotion, and they're just the bias of their own selection, and it goes on and on.
It's also one of the great parts about it too. I mean, there is a part of me that enjoys the fact that people are so passionate about the sport. Yeah. For good or bad or whatever they say, they're talking about it. And if they weren't talking about it, I would be upset and nervous. Right. But the fact that they are is kind of a cool thing. So, it doesn't necessarily. I would love if it was all positive, but we know that it's not going to be. So you take it for what it is, and people are very passionate about the sport in general.
Yeah, and one of the things is that there's always all these people saying oh, I don't care about Formula Drift, I don't even watch it, but in reality, they're still keeping an eye on it.
They just said Formula Drift. They just mentioned it. They gave thought to it. Yeah,
and even if they say they're not watching, they're still watching it, and they're just looking for dirt. And at the end of the day, you will always have hate on everything. Even the dumbest YouTube video gets oh, this is gay, It's just for some reason people likes to do that.
Something that bothers me though that has become more and more prevalent in the past few years is I think it started out with a couple parody accounts of the sport, which were sometimes very pointed, but usually start out funny. And then I've seen in the past year a lot of these grow to more volatile accounts, and they still do funny, playful stuff, but a lot of the times they're just getting a mob of people to say that they despise Formula Drift, and I think it's the tone has changed a bit, and I don't know why exactly, because I don't think that there's been necessarily worse judging calls than maybe there ever was in the sport. And I'm usually on the ground. I'm usually objective. I'm usually watching, and I don't think I'm like a suck up. I just usually agree with the judges because I know the sport pretty well. But how does it feel to, or do you even address, like, do you admit, or not admit, but do you acknowledge that there is more volatile people? Like, is it a growing thing, or is it me?
I don't know. I mean, when I first started, kind of seeing that stuff pop up, it definitely caught me by surprise because, as I mentioned, a few minutes ago, anytime that there was somebody that had a question about something, if I could take the opportunity to talk about it, I would, and try to be honest about it. And if it was a judging call, the judges know that, I'm going to say what I think, even if it means I think that you guys made a bad call. Now, I think that they've been way more consistent over the past few years as we've dialed in some of the, the criteria. But, it's one of those kind of things where the, on Instagram side of things is different than forums and Facebook, because for some reason, the anonymity side of it allows there to be some type of different feeling to it. Like
everybody's a talk behind the keyboard.
If we knew who if we knew who this guy was, people would go look at his profile and be like, "Dude, this guy's a total nerd. Look at all these things," and there would be no credibility. But because you can't criticize,
right,
it allows there for to be criticism in only one direction. But I would just say that I think that some of the parody pages are. There's no way you can spend that much time and know so many, or seemingly know so many details about things that are going on without being a true fan, which is, I think, for me, kind of an interesting thing. So
yeah, I mean, you could just say it's trolling at its finest. Is that someone that is a true fan that cares a lot about the sport spends a lot of time ridiculing it and saying that it's over and stupid and everyone should leave. Like the
but
fact
they're
that
there.
The fact that they're there.
But it's also I think that's an area, like for me, I learned a lot, especially last year, because it really caught me by surprise about how much of a black hole you can get into. You really can't even comment back without there being a raging thread.
Right.
And you go down this rabbit hole where nothing is learned. People are getting mad at you, and there's no real actual conversation to be had. It's just, you suck, everybody is corrupt, and basically
and people stupid for watching.
What would you say to the angriest kid on Instagram right now who's ready to sell his drift car and ready to never look at the Formula Drift internet live stream ever again? What would you say to that kid?
I would say, tell me why you're angry, and I would love to have a conversation with you. I mean, I've literally had people call me at my office, and I'll pick up and we'll have a half an hour conversation about philosophy of drifting.
How does that usually turn out?
Sometimes fun. I mean, I had a kid call me this morning. I get my office calls forwarded to my cell phone, and there was an Atlanta number, and I thought maybe it had something to do with Atlanta promotions or something, so I picked it up. And some kid, and he was like, "Hey man, I want to know, how do I become a drifter? What do you do? How do you do it?" And that guy's already got some gusto behind him, because he calls the head of the biggest drifting organization in the world. Can we say in the world, right? Yeah, I think so.
So the head, he wants him to learn how to become a drifter, and rather than Google it, rather than see some videos about how to drift, he's like, no, I better go straight to the top. Good for
I don't know if he even knew who I was, or he just clicked on 5 or whatever, but he did say, he was like, "Hey, your voice sounds familiar. You're the guy that does the commentating?" Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love stuff like that.
And you told him, right? You said buy an S13 and go crash it.
Your friends.
I told him, I said, "Hey, we're setting up at Long Beach. I'd love to have this conversation with you." Gave him a couple, links to look at, and I said, "Call me on Tuesday."
Well, hell yeah, that's awesome.
That reminds me a little bit. I don't know if you remember, a couple years ago, one of our friends, actually a couple of our friends, they bought VIP tickets to Long Beach event, and I think, probably an automatic generated letter from Formula Drift. Thanks, for buying your VIP tickets. Let me know if you need anything. And they actually reply to you with a long list of very stupid questions, which you actually answered. And they were actually surprised, dude, he actually answered all of our questions.
Yeah, it was the silliest ransom demands, the movie, was it Airheads, where they demand a certain CD autographed and a certain very strange specific object, and you actually answered each line by line, saying I don't think this is really feasible, but I'll do my best, I guess.
I actually think I might remember that. That must have been 3-4 years ago, right?
It's probably 3 years ago, and I think we even we found you leaving the official party, and we were getting in, and
oh god, this is embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
I offered to buy. This is my first drift event I went to, and I offered to buy Ryan Sage a drink, and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's cool. Like, I get to drink for free because we're like hosting the event." I'm like, "No, I insist." And I spent like $10 of my very hard-earned money buying you a fucking whiskey or something. Stupid.
Thank you.
That's fine.
That's very kind.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So yeah, that just like pretty much says like how. Like you're always willing to interact with a fan, so it's like to the people who keep saying that it's all corporate bullshit, like blah blah blah. These people only care about the money and they don't care about who wins.
I do have a real complaint though that actually my mom made me when I told her that we were talking to Ryan Sage and she's come to the events and she's met you before and she likes you very much. But she said you ask Ryan Sage why there's not enough bleachers at FG Texas because last year she's getting older. Yeah, and she brought her brother and her sister out, and they're actually big drift fans. And last year, like I think they even bought VIP tickets. I don't remember, but there was no seating
for VIP.
Maybe it was regular, but they showed up early enough ish. But there's a lack of seating, and there is only standing room. Why don't you get more bleachers? Is what she asked me.
She'll have more for her this year. Yeah,
you promise?
They're gonna let us put bleachers on the grass now, so I think
let you. Worked out. In the past, it was track safety. They wouldn't let you put more bleachers in the
there's that fence line where the track entrance is and the last bleacher is. We're not supposed to go on the left side of that, but I think we've got approval to do that now, so
no more standing room only, hopefully.
I mean it depends on how many people come, but eventually what we're trying to do for all the venues is go to reserve seating for all of them and then just not have any standing room at all. But we've got to do what we do here and have the seating map so we can be able to do that, and hopefully we'll have that done by the end of this year for all of them for the most part.
All right, Mom.
Road Atlanta.
Text me. I guess this isn't live. Text me later if you're satisfied with that answer, or email Ryan because apparently he will answer all emails.
And we'll put you somewhere.
Okay. So I guess that's really reassuring. We'll put you somewhere.
No, we definitely. Texas is one of those markets where there's some improvements that need to be made for sure.
And it's also the newest.
Let's see if we can
venue,
get it.
Right?
See if we can get it up in the judges' booth.
I'm sure maybe. Is it kind of like they used to be in airplanes where like you'll give her a little pair of wings and like let her touch like the judging controls?
We'll do whatever makes her happy.
The good old Pan Am days.
What is the actual physical mechanical thing that judges have to vote driver A or driver B? I like to picture that it's a very large lever that each one has to crank.
That was the old system. The new system we digitized it a little bit. So yeah,
you mentioned something that you guys been working on something new, and obviously this is the new season, and it all starts tomorrow. So is there anything new you can tell us that's gonna happen before it actually happens that we're gonna see that you can reveal to us right now?
From the series side, yeah, I mean, we made a couple announcements this week. The biggest one for people that are most interested in the sport that are not able to come to the events is a live stream. So we signed with a new live stream partner, a company called Sports Rocket, who runs Network A, and a lot of people I think are familiar with Network A.
Yep.
And so we're using their back-end technology to put the stream out there. Great company, got a multi-year term, so should be an improvement, and I think that'll make everybody really happy. We're going to be able to distribute our content on multiple channels now rather than being tied to just one, so that'll help exposure and things like that for drivers. But yeah,
so it'll be live on Network A YouTube.
They will do it there preliminarily, and we'll have it on our live page, and then eventually what's going to happen is we're going to kind of build out like an OTT drift-centric hub for all Formula D related content.
What does OTT mean?
Over the top.
Over the top. Have you seen that movie with Sylvester Stallone where he's like a traveling arm wrestler guy?
Mm-mm.
I highly recommend it. That's it. That's all
Over the top.
Over the top. It's got.
Never heard of it.
Did I say Mel Gibson? I meant Sylvester Stallone. So here, picture this. He's a guy, and he's been a really bad dad so far, and this is his chance to make it up to his kid. And he's like a truck driver, and he's going from truck top to truck stop, arm wrestling his way to friendship, fatherhood, and I think money. I don't know.
Isn't it called Cobra?
That's a similar theme movie. There's a lot of really cool movies in the 80s.
What's your favorite 80s movie?
Yeah, let's talk less about the FD stuff. We might come back to it, but some Ryan Sage
movies,
facts. Yeah.
Are we staying in the same genre?
Anything 80s that's beautiful. I don't know.
Oh, geez. I mean,
inspiring.
Gremlins. What's the movie? Throw Mama from the Train.
I don't know what that is. What's that?
Danny DeVito
and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Twins.
Wait, they have multiple movies together? I thought there was just
Twins.
Twins, yeah.
I love that one.
What's the one where Arnold gets pregnant? That's one of my favorites.
Junior.
Junior.
Yeah,
Great
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Quote that in my life every day.
You know, I mean, all the Karate Kids are fun. Big Trouble in Little China.
That is
Yeah.
okay. That is. I'm just
Now
gonna
we're
throw it out there.
talking.
That's one of my all-time favorites. The
Yeah.
first time I saw that was, unfortunately, not until like college, but it did change my life a little bit because it was so fucking weird.
The original Fright Night, was that in the, that might have been 90s. Original Fright
Probably
Night.
the one with what's her name? Oh shit. Yeah, I can't remember right now. I'm very bad at that, but yeah, I know which one I'm talking about.
Real cheesy, but as
Yeah.
a kid, you're kind of like, ooh.
Why can't they make
oh.
cool movies like think of Howard the Duck? You know Howard the Duck?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you imagine the production meeting, like pre-production meeting? They're like, all right, so here's the premise. It's this little horny duck guy, and he's just going to make sexual jokes for about 90 minutes. But here's the kicker, guys. This is going to be marketed towards kids. And someone at Paramount, whoever, was like, yup, greenlit. Let's do it. Let's make a bunch of sexy jokes to kids with a duck that goes in a hang glider and from space, though.
So bad.
Who picks the music for FD?
Like the music we play on the stream or at the live?
Live events.
The DJ that we use is from Bell One. You know those guys?
No.
So yeah, he's just one of kind of our traveling DJ. He picks it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I hear some real rippers on there that I like a lot. And I get really excited.
Yeah,
when
sometimes I'm kind of like, you know, but you know, we'll have a conversation about it. You know, in the beginning days of Formula Drift. I don't know if you remember this, but when we used to do top 16 introductions, it used to come with a theme song.
You did that all the way up until I think like Matt Powers' first year, because I do remember seeing on like Speed Hunters and thinking it was really kick-ass that Powers came out to like AC/DC.
Yeah. Reese came out to that, or I think somebody punked him, and when he came out was that song from the Land Down Under. I don't know the title of it, but
Like
and then Keyboard Cat. That was a big thing in the drifting.com days. Was Keyboard Cat.
Play him off Keyboard Cat.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. How would that work though? So like one driver would come out, and then as you're into like, would they drive out one by one?
It would be like, and Jared would be like, up next, you know, Matt Powers, and be like, bounce, down, out,
Okay.
down, out.
cool.
And he would drift out.
Why did that go away? Because of licensing? Were you getting cease and desist letters from?
No, but we have before on that. I think it was because of the timing. It took forever.
Yeah, I can imagine if you got to play 20 seconds or so.
It took forever, and it was like the first couple events we did. It was like cool, and then after that, it was like, you know, after you hear Back in Black, you know, 5 different times. I mean, not that gets old. I love AC/DC, but
I was gonna say, did you make so every driver had to pick a different one? Because what if every driver just chose Back in Black, and then you just have the same 20 seconds of Back in Black?
But thankfully, I think we said first and second option just in case that happened.
Okay.
So we thought about that, but yeah, we did some crazy stuff back in those days.
Nice.
Where's it
Are you ready to answer some?
Oh yeah, we got
questions?
a bunch of fan questions. We'd like to.
Sure, yeah.
Have a couple good ones. So we have this guy calls himself Iron Dookie.
Iron. Oh, so what we do is about an hour before the show, because we don't like to reveal too early who our special guest is. So we said, hey, Ryan's gonna be here. This guy asked a really good question, I think, to Osbo. But Iron Dookie, you're back. What's up?
Yeah, Iron Dookie's back. So he's asking, who do you think will win in a fist fight, you or Jared Deanda? Actually, how do you guys brought Jared to the series?
Jared has worked in the same industry that I have for as long as I've known him, and I came across him when he used to work at this shoe company called Speedwell.
Okay.
And they did a FD driving shoe for us, and I think the company ended up going out of business or whatever. That's what happens.
Good job, Jared.
That's what happens when Jared gets in control.
Oh God.
But for some reason, there was something about him that he just had like this pizzazzy type of quality.
I heard his silky smooth voice and
yeah, and we were looking for an announcer, and we wanted it to be kind of, you know, something original and our own, and we said, hey, would you give this a shot? So and in the early days, it actually was him and I, for I think like 1 or 2 events, and I was like, you know what, I can't handle this. It's too much stress. There's too many things going on with the event. You're good at it. Just do it. And that was how we got together.
And before we get to Dookie's question, which I'm sure we're all dying to hear, but so now are you officially always next to him? Because I think some events you are at some times next to him, or are you always doing
I've been officially next to him for probably the past, I think, 2 years.
That's right,
for all the events, yeah.
And why did you decide to come back out? Just for more of that transparency, or just additional person to talk to?
People, including, drivers, fans, sponsors, were saying, Jared needs a sidekick. It's traditional in motorsports and other sports that somebody has a sidekick to bounce things off of and all that kind of stuff. And, the trouble with this sport is that there's just not a lot of people. I mean, there is now, with guys like you and some of the other guys that are doing media and that have the ability to speak in front of a camera and all that kind of stuff, and speak intelligently, which I try my best to do, but it's hard all the time. I have a very, very low IQ, so.
Well, see, it is really hard. That was the entire reason why I did the whole driver on driver thing, was because I wanted to be in front of the camera, and the only way for me to break through that was by acting like a jackass. So now that I've gotten that under the belt, it's still really hard. I'm kind of shy right now, actually. Not talking about it. But who's going to win? You or Jared?
In a fight, I mean, Jared has a lot of
girth,
pop, behind his punch, but I mean, he's way too slow.
I know.
It's way too slow.
He's always like after the event, he's always like, "Hey, what's up, man? Hey," just gets a little.
Yeah, I wonder what his bell curve is to strength to beer ratio. So like if he has, maybe if you catch him right after that bell curve starts going down, where he loses that beer strength, and maybe kind of goes into a slight coma, you can probably.
I've had more experiences that are unique and memorable with Jared than I probably have with almost anybody in the series, just because we spend so much time together. And he is kind of like a brother to me in a certain kind of way, because we spending time in the studio, you really get to know somebody. And Jared he'll peer through you. He will ask you pointed questions. It's not a superficial discussion or relationship at all. Like, if he wants to get to know you, he's going to get to know you.
That's nice. He's got that authentic general interest, which I think all good interviewer people have, is that you understand that they're not just asking for the show, they're asking because they authentically want to know what that thing is.
Who is Jared not friends with once he meets him, right?
Right.
Yep.
So he's going to beat you then? Or are you going to?
I think that the speed over power.
Speed over power.
Let's say that Jared were to be indisposed somehow and can't make it to an event. Could I announce for him?
We could consider it, sure.
Hell yeah, Jared.
Can I
watch your back, bud?
Do you have a couple Jared-isms that you could practice right now?
Oh, dude, he's got the best.
Oh, doctor. I miss Oh, doctor.
That needs to come back.
And the winner is Ryan Turk, the doctor.
One thing he does have a pretty uncanny ability to do is he knows the sequence of sponsors from A to Z.
Yeah, he can spout that out, no problem.
Yeah, and I've always found that to be pretty impressive.
He's definitely a merchandising machine. No merchandising, how do you say that?
Sex machine?
I don't know if you want to call him that. There's another question. Dude, for some reason, everybody wants to know about your fights and say.
I don't think, when I think of Ryan Sage, before I even sat down with you today, because I've only met you a number of times before that, I never thought Ryan Sage is a fighter. Like, for something about your appearance and your down.
Is Ryan Sage a lover or a fighter?
That's a Paco question.
I don't know. That's not a true dichotomy. So
he loves fighting.
We have Simon Morrow asking. Sorry. Would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
A horse-sized duck, and what was the second one?
Or 100 duck-sized horses.
I'm going to go with the latter, only because, are there any other stipulations in this? All right, because if I had a bat, I think I could do like a...
Got a bat, okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
I feel like,
right.
It's a very common internet question. I don't know if you've seen it over the years. But I feel like, personally, one horse-sized duck, that seems pretty simple to me compared to 100 duck-sized horses. Because horses also, they can bite. If there's 100 of them that are angry at you, you're going to get overwhelmed.
Ducks bite, too. Now imagine
geese.
A horse.
Geese are fucking terrible. They're terrible.
Assholes.
There would definitely be some concerns.
Let's see. We have Shan Power. He's actually asking about the Blackview being a new sponsor. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We started off, having some discussions with those guys probably later into this, the sponsorship sales cycle than you would have wanted. We didn't know that we were not going to renew with GoPro, and these guys just happened to, to be there. They're not competitive with GoPro. They don't want to necessarily. They don't have a product that competes with them. So that's going to allow drivers the ability to still capture content in their vehicles with other cameras. But they're providing a pretty cool service in the sense that the camera is basically a dash cam. It's a front and rear dash cam that is cloud enabled. So I can go on my app right now and go to whatever part of the world, and you'll see these little green nodes that come up, and those green nodes represent people that have opened their camera to be viewed.
Public
interesting.
That's cool.
And so the first stage is to get cameras in most of the cars.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this going to apply to our sport, or are we going to have live views of cars?
We might have live views this weekend.
Oh, no shit. Okay, so that's
you
something.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, if you've been listening to the podcast since the beginning, since everyone was saying, "Oh, this relatively unknown Chinese or Korean company."
Yeah, we're putting it's pretty much the top 10 guys. We're putting 10 cameras with that are cloud enabled, and you'll basically be able to download the app. So there's some guy right
Dude,
here.
that's the best. Like I had totally said that would be the coolest thing, and I think Corey or you, someone was saying like, "No, Sam, you can't do that. You can't implement that so fast."
We have the technology. We can't do it.
That's one of the coolest parts about watching like NASCAR or F1, like seeing the onboard cameras in live motion. So that's super cool.
When we were doing HeroCast last year at Irwindale, I don't know if you guys remember, we had a couple like onboard shots that were utilizing the top mount. And those are really, really cool. But that whole thing is so crazy expensive.
Yeah, the infrastructure or the backbone required to do all that stuff is intricate.
So the next this way of doing it is they have provided a lot of the technology, and we're just connecting to the internet. And as long as we have a good connection, we should be able to get out. We did a test at Media Day with Gucci and Forsberg and Turk and Osbo. And it came out pretty good. There was good 720 streams from those guys. And on Friday and Saturday at the event, you'll have unlimited view time if you're at home, or if you're at the event, you feel like you want to watch people.
Oh, yeah.
So anytime the cars are powered on, there should be a stream coming through. And so long as there's internet connectivity, should be pumping.
Have you guys
out.
announced that? Because I feel like that's relatively unknown news.
It's on. It should have been on our blog today. If not, it'll probably be there a little bit later. So you're getting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, actually, maybe you are seeing this on Friday, so you are.
Yeah, about the same time. Who is your favorite driver to watch? I'd say, who is going to be your favorite driver to watch this year? Who are you looking out for that you want to see big, great things from?
I don't know. Like over the years, I've tried to condition myself not to like have favorites.
Yeah.
Because
especially because you're announcing now. Like,
yeah, and I don't want to like psychologically trick myself into saying something, subconscious that's bubbling up from the subconscious, and have it come out and be biased. So I try not to do that.
Let's not say favorite. Let's say interesting. Who's got an asterisk next to their name that you are interested in seeing?
The guys that I tend to root for are the guys that are guys that I feel like have a good story to tell, and that are nice guys, which is mostly everybody, but there's some nicer than others. I mean, I've really loved Ken develop his program over the past year. He looked amazing at Media Day. Definitely getting that kind of real silky smooth style, and the commitment that a lot of, I think, maybe past years has been lacking a little bit. Of course, Osbo, I think he represents kind of the next breed of driver, and he's one to beat. There's this stat that I was talking about the other day, and in an article about, he won 4 events last year, right? 5 including Canada. That's never been done before. Yeah. So, where does that leave him in kind of the pound for pound greatest of all time? Is he allowed to enter that discussion now, or does he still need to, get another year? Gittin's another one where could get interesting. He finally has a chassis that he wants. I mean, he's always wanted his chassis, but I think this one has had the capabilities that he has really wanted to try and explore for drifting.
Yeah, he's when everyone started doing the bigger angle wars like 2 years ago, I guess now, like he was still on more or less the exact same steering angle as maybe only a little bit improved over a stock Mustang. I don't know that for sure. Yeah,
and a lot of people don't know these things. They just assume, hey, Monster Ford, that's going to be the best program out there, and it is a top-notch program. But every driver has limitations and a scope that they have to work in.
So let's say he intentionally put that car on the wall in Texas. He just wanted to get rid of it. I need a new one.
Yeah, he was just making a statement that the old Mustang is out and no one should buy them. Totally kidding. Hopefully.
Hi, Vaughn.
Hey, Vaughn. I don't think he listens, so we're good. So I'm going to do driver on driver with Vaughn, I think, this week. Do you have anything I should rip on him for?
I mean, there's so much.
We'll talk after the show. I don't want to reveal too much.
I have another question from Tony Stark.
Oh, wow.
That's
Cool.
Awesome.
Great.
Chiming in. So like saying, do you still drift?
I haven't since basically year 1 or 2. I mean, we had a car that we built that we tossed around every now and again. It was actually Robbie, the car that we sold to the owner of Robbie Nishida's 350Z. And we built that for EA like year 1 or 2. And we had it and messed around for a while, but I haven't really gotten back.
So they're not even like, let me just like give it a test drive or anything, like,
you know, I try not to ever use like where I sit in like the sport to go to practice on Thursday and say, hey, give me a ride along. I rarely ever do that. I actually only think I've done a ride along within the past 5 years, maybe once.
Wow.
It's gotten really crazy, I think. I've only ever gotten now one real ride along in Long Beach last year with Forsberg, and then again with Forsberg at Park. But it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, at the demos, at the demos and things like that, I'll hop in, you know, to capture and get media and things like that.
So you know what 1,000 horsepower feels like now?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, were you at Media Day?
Yeah.
That's right, I saw you there. But so did you do a bunch of rides?
No, I was busy filming.
Okay.
People getting rides.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like it. I mean, it's hard to. I wish there was a program for the general public to come and get a ride along so they could experience what it's like, because it's pretty crazy.
The most surprising thing is the amount of grip. And for me, especially as a young fan, young in years of following versus now an elderly fan of having more idea with the sport, is initially, and this is brought up many times, that people think that there's a lack of grip that makes the cars slide. But you realize as you ride in them, that is total grip. It is the most grip you can legally have within the series. And it's just the massive amounts of power to break it loose. So that way, the second you're off throttle, the car more or less just like stops moving as much as possible. So that way you can give ultimate control to your line. But that was very surprising, like driving with Forsberg at Long Beach, just seeing how you're on like full throttle so much of the time just to keep that forward momentum. Because anytime you let off throttle, the car like instantly starts to slow and or shallow. That's
definitely one of the common misperceptions of drifting, is that, hey, you know, the tires need to be bald. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've gotten rid of that from most of the fans, but. I mean, but like in drifting, everything is pretty much counterintuitive. I mean, when you come out of turn 9 and you're coming across to the other side to that first outer zone and you're shooting to the second outer zone, in your mind as a regular person that drives a car every day, you're like, there's no way we're not going into that tire wall.
Right.
And then somehow you don't go into the tire wall, and I mean, the cars are incredible now.
Where does it stop? Where do you see, not development stopping, of course, but what happens in the next 5 years in car development? I think
we have started a certain line of thought that is in the scope of cost containment. You know, they're not having a spec series allows almost anything to take place within limitation. Obviously, we've kept the chassis pretty virgin, but you know, there are things that you can do to the car that will add thousands of, I mean, you just add carbon doors and all of a sudden, you know, you're adding thousands of dollars potential, or any carbon parts.
Carbon everything, yeah.
Carbon everything. And, you know, Lexan and things like that. Now, those things on the outside from an aesthetic standpoint, not really going to make a difference. But if we had everybody install the factory doors again and have a glass windshield or something of the like, it could peel back the cost a little bit. I'm not saying that those are the things that we would do initially, but these are some of the conversations that we're starting to have in terms of, you know, you don't want to take away the sexiness of the sport, but you want to cost contain so that these programs can survive year after year.
So that is a direction you're thinking, instead of going in your head and the head of the other FD movers, it is less towards the race car realm of tube frame and more towards the let's put some weight and some cost savings back on these cars? I
think the general idea is, where are the major costs coming from? Are any of those things that if we were to peel them back or take them away in some way, shape, or form, or reformulate them, would take away some of the appeal of drifting? Is it just an aesthetics thing that could be adjusted that would help cost contain? Of course, there's the big question about tire usage and just how many tires these people are going through. And
because that seems to be the major issue right now, is that most guys are not even making 2 complete passes. They're losing tires. And do you like that competitiveness of it, that they have to plan to save tires now that they have 1,200 horsepower, or would you prefer them to drive 100% all the time and maybe allow them to have a tire change after each half of the battle.
I mean, obviously, we've actually put rules into the rulebook this year that makes it impossible to enact your 5 minutes between a run, because people were starting to do that last year.
Right, change over tires when they.
And then the next guy would do it. He would see that, hey, this is a strategic move on his part. I'm going to go put on a new set as well. And then the manufacturer, has got to nut up for that. So there's definitely a discussion there too. I mean, I could see there being, hey, you've got X number of tires to use for the weekend. Use them as you wish. You can do them all your runs on Thursday or whatever. I don't know. But those are some of the discussions that we're starting to have in order for programs to have longevity and be able to go to market, and especially on the tire side, because the way that we price our sponsorships for tires is we cut a huge chunk of what we would actually sell it to the market for, so that those guys can support teams. If they can't support teams, then we don't really have a sport. So, we enable ourselves to try to find money elsewhere and not always go back to the tire manufacturers.
Speaking of tires, how does it feel to not have Daigo here this year? I mean, I guess it's because he did switch tires. I don't know the specifics. Does anyone know the specifics on it, really? But
I mean, I think like Sherilyn and Achilles have been pretty transparent on what's going on there, and sounds like he's going to do a year in Japan and come back. But I don't really know. I'm not sure about the whole inner workings of that. I mean, I've heard so much stuff, but I've just learned not to speculate on stuff that I don't know.
Right, which is why I didn't say one way or the other. I've read different weird things on the internet, and I guess Achilles' official statement's the one that really matters much. But yeah, it's definitely weird to see. I was hoping to see the R35 GTR a little bit more developed this year, and maybe make some moves after my first season at FD, which was his dominating SC 400 season. Is that a 400?
SC 430.
430, yeah.
Also known as a chaser. The sorter.
A sorter.
The sorter,
keep track of all the JDM names.
Question for you. So now you guys have separated Formula Drift from Formula Drift Pro 2. So they're pretty much like a different series now. I mean, it's like Pro 2 becomes another step.
Yeah, and this year we have a private Pro 2 event in our home city of Phoenix.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, we'd love to see
not
you guys
private,
there.
but it's a standalone Pro 2 event, not Pro 1.
But which I think it was a very nice step, because I think there was a lot of drivers coming in very, very unprepared. Like they have no idea how much of a difference it's between.
And then going up against Forsberg or Vaughn when they're showing up with their pickup truck and two sets of tires.
Having such a hard time to qualify, and then you finally made it on 32nd. And you're going against Daigo, it's like it was demoralizing, I think.
Yeah.
So I think Pro 2 is a very good call, and it's very exciting to watch. A lot of new drivers, new faces, new cars, but a lot of people's been talking about like this whole thing about creating a new series where everything's like more like more capped, like more
restricted.
Restricted, like cars, exactly. Yeah, and. A lot of questions asking if Formula Drift is ever going to try to expand into also creating like a
spec series. I
think remember we used to call like a street legal series or something like that. Yeah. And funny things like some of our friends from Midwest Drift Union, they just started I think they're called the Street League Drift, which is pretty much that. Like they're gonna have these events where their cars are gonna be not stock, but I mean, like
heavily restricted on
very restricted on modifications.
I think they said you have to have full interior.
Yeah, so is that something that Formula Drift would be ever interested into, like expanding into more events that are still Formula Drift, and they could have the possibilities of being televised or sold to bigger sponsors? Like, hey, we have this other series where you can put your products, that are not necessarily like very, very.
You mean
racing.
like monster truck style, like that kind of thing?
Well, I mean,
I think Vaughn is already trying to move into that realm with Osmo a couple years ago. No, like it's a discussion we've had at the show a lot. Is do you see Formula Drift ever? We've never had someone that actually could give us true insight on that. Do you see Formula Drift doing a legacy league, doing a spec league?
It's hard to say. I mean, all of the way that the series functions is also a function of the business model. Unlike the NBA or Major League Baseball or NASCAR, we are not franchises, right? The teams are not franchises, rather.
Yeah.
So they own everything for the most part. We have some rights on, windshield banners and things like that, but they have the right to go and sell their program whatever the way they want. If we went away from that and tried to change things, the matriculation of getting from one series to the next would also change. So the way that it is right now is basically, kind of run what you brung type thing. This is more of like a super crossy type of deal. So you have different ways to get into the series. Would we change all of that to do a spec series? I don't know.
An additional one. I would say that it would be a bonus
not
series.
changing it.
It's not a step up to you got to do spec, you got to do Pro 2, you got to do Pro 1. It's just like, would you create
Here's another thing.
Maybe in one event. So what this all comes down to,
right? Everybody's driving Mustangs for.
I just want to see every single driver
drive the same car.
Yeah, in an S14 with the stock KA. Do whatever you want to coilovers. Do whatever you want to steering angle. Run. You have to run like 205 whatever tires. But just I want to see a
like a
completely level playing field.
Skill, exactly.
And that's extreme. But do you ever see something that you guys would do in the future that maybe is a for fun event, or just
even if it's like a special event?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I could see the value in that for sure. I mean, that would definitely answer a lot of the questions about
bragging.
Is it a fan friendly thing? Maybe for like the core people like us. I think what's exciting about what we do now is that it's kind of a spectacle.
Yeah.
I mean, we've made it so it's so crazy. Right now, where at some tracks it's almost hard to know what's going on course because you're just looking into a plume of white smoke.
That's so fast and it's over in 20 seconds.
You're like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then you got to go back and look at it, and drifting is the only motorsport, and Formula D especially because of the tire smoke, that I know where you have there's a third thing in play. If it rains this weekend, it's going to be really easy to tell what happens on course.
Right.
You go to a Texas where there's crazy speed, tons of smoke, nighttime, completely different variables.
Is that why? So I actually didn't even think about this until it changed. I thought maybe you changed the Irwindale layout to be a little bit shorter because maybe tire wear, maybe that was a factor. But then someone, I don't remember whose opinion I cared for, said that you changed it because people were just being blocked by tire smoke.
Both.
You couldn't see the view. Okay.
Both, yeah. I mean, there was definitely a factor for sure. I mean, you've mentioned it on the show before and today. I mean, a lot of guys are barely getting through 2 runs.
Right.
And so there's a conservation effort that's going on, but it's all balanced by I need to have the grippiest tires.
Where would you like to see? So we mentioned it a minute ago about you've been looking into different tire limiting factors. Maybe what do you think, at least in your opinion, is your solution to the question of how do we limit or do we make tires unlimited?
One of the biggest things is we have a ton of practice. Now this is where a lot of tires get eaten up. There's a question about where do and this practice is mostly single run practice, right? And our product is tandem drifting. So in some sense, if you have 5 hours of non-public single run practice to kind of get the feel of things, is that going too overboard? And is where you should be focusing your attention is, hey, get used to the track, but we should be practicing more in tandem possibly to make the show better, and also to reduce the number of tires that are being used on these open days.
Yeah. So I don't know if you listened to the episode like 1 or 2 ago where we talked to a gentleman out of Australia, Chris de Jager. The Jagger. I always say his name wrong.
Sorry.
But he has essentially done this new format of qualification and competition. The battle format is kind of what we're loosely calling it. I don't think we even have an official name.
I think people's calling it the Jaeger system.
Yeah, the Jaeger system. Do you know anything about this? And
I don't know.
So Paco might be able to explain it better than
I. Maybe you heard like the guys from Lone Star Drift. They started implementing this system just like 2-3 weeks ago on their first round, and it consists on, instead of having all these people trying to qualify, doing their practice runs and their qualifying runs, it consists on pretty much like you battle since the beginning. It's battle, and that's how you come up with the top 32.
So the placement for qualification is essentially done from the previous event. So forgetting about how to implement this tomorrow with an existing playing field, but each season is based off the performance last season and your points, I guess, accrued last season. And from there, the entire event is your qualifying essentially is just all battles, and there's just almost always battles from start to finish. And I think the idea is that one, it's more fair in that you're not judged off of just one run
Absolutely.
after the entire weekend, and two, it's a more exciting show for the fans in that it's just battles nonstop.
For me, if we could get rid of qualifying, I would.
Okay.
I mean, qualifying for me, I'm glad that people like to watch. Certain people like to watch it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the marketability of it and the process of it, it can be painful.
And it was brutal when it was 60 cars.
It can be tedious. I mean, this also goes back to a conversation we were having a couple minutes ago about like the business model is, if we just had a 32 car field, we could do a double elimination format where you have something similar to that, and you have double elimination, so that way if you're the number one guy or you're the 32nd ranked guy, you have equal opportunity, you get one loss, and you go into these different brackets until the end. Now you'd have to re-educate people about how that all works, but it would certainly get rid of qualifying, and it would make it safe for everybody in that 32 car field to know that they're always going to have a shot. And we're getting pretty close to that point.
Really? So that seems like a very drastic move, but it's one that...
How many drivers?
Well, when I say getting close to that point, I mean, in terms of the drivers, the numbers of cars in the field right now are right around that 35, 34, 33 number.
Which that was
before Pro 2, there was... What, like 60 something?
Is that one of the main reasons behind Pro 2 was to limit the Pro 1 field so you could have a more concise show there?
Yeah, and also, sometimes in our earlier systems, there would be drivers that would get into Pro 1 that probably weren't ready for that level of competition, so that you have a proper way for them to kind of matriculate up into the Pro class. Me personally, and there's people in my office that we talk about this a lot. I mean, when we talk about what should we do, in terms of creating the best product, competition, the best structure, thinking about the viability for teams long term, thinking about what we should do for drivers in terms of allowances in rule book and all that kind of stuff. You start really thinking about so many different things that it's really kind of hard to nail down exactly where you want to go first. My perspective is let's make the best possible show that we can, and let's keep the regulations in line so that we are not putting too much cost to teams so that they can just be competitive. Now, if you have a 32 car field, a lot of that's eliminated because it guarantees those spots. Then you just have to have some mechanism in place where Pro 2 doesn't become irrelevant. And how do you get from Pro 2 into Pro? Are you saying that if you're the top 8 in Pro, you would, matriculate into Pro 1? Well, you can't really do that in kind of a franchise-based system.
You're kicking out 8 guys from 32.
Yeah. Then you don't really have a guarantee. So it's not an easy answer, but it's certainly something to think about.
Is there a cap on Pro 1 this year? Like how many Pro 1 guys are there? Out there?
I think since we got rid of like the 60 car field, I don't think you'll ever see more than 35, 36 cars.
Yeah. Really? So there's only a handful of people that are not qualifying, and that's usually, I guess, probably due to mechanical breakdown at this point. If there's only 4 guys that aren't making it into the show,
pretty much, yeah.
So what happens? Yeah. I'm sure this is all laid out, and I just forgot about it. I don't know what happens next year to how many Pro 2 guys go up and how many Pro 1 guys go down.
So right now it's 8.
Okay, so it is 8 on either side, but you just have a little bit of extra breathing room, so it's not just 32.
Yeah,
you've got those extras.
Yeah, and some people, choose to do both so they can hedge.
Yeah.
But guys like Jeff Jones have decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for Pro 1 this year. And take that risk.
It's funny. I mean, with the whole separation between Pro and Pro 1, how do you actually call it, like Pro 1 and Pro 2, or just?
We just call it Pro and Pro 2.
Pro and Pro 2. Okay, so there you go. So officially it's Pro and Pro 2. So the separation between Pro and Pro 2, you see a lot of people on Pro 2 is bringing already like 1,000 horsepower cars, and they're just like insane builds.
We've said it looks like FD like about 2 years ago, maybe, until Alex Hellbroom showed up last year with essentially a Pro 1 car in our minds. And then now seeing him on media day, like he's looking nuts already. But
So what's funny is that, and I was just talking about this with my buddy David, who's in the background from 18 Fab. We were just talking on the way here how even on the Pro-Ams, people is bringing these 1,000 horsepower cars. And it doesn't matter if you have a huge car with tons of power and a $100,000 car. Like I believe David was telling me that the winner of Top Drift, right? It's Top Drift. Just this very first round of Top Drift, he won with a A86 with a 150 horsepower car.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like it's just like, I mean, it's not necessarily that the level of Pro 2 and Pro-Ams comes with the horsepower, with the build of the car. I think it's all about how you as a driver understand what's going on in the track, and how you understand your car, and if you can spend all weekend driving your car because it only makes 200 horsepower, or if you spend 2 runs because you've immediately ruined 3 sets of tires. In Pro-Am, you still see people getting off the car with the helmet on, jacking it up, changing tires themselves.
Yeah.
Like that's not ever gonna be. You don't see that in FD. Well, I mean, we've seen Ryan Turk trying to get in there, but I mean that's technicality. So yeah, Pro-Am versus Pro 2. I mean, Pro 2 still. It's way higher, like more professional, more. It's only 4 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It definitely. I think it was something needed for people to understand what does it take to do 7 rounds of Pro. So a lot of people was complaining about like, well, no, and I have to do Pro 2. It's like I wanted to go directly to Pro 1.
Well, you should have driven better. And that's why it exists.
There's a reason why there's a Pro 2 came after a Pro 1, and it's because we built the sport from the top down. We didn't do it from the bottom up, which is the way you would typically do something. We started with Pro, and then we had nothing. And so the first few years, you had like a lot of random people coming in that were not meant to be there, and we had to get our foundation in order. And that was the reason for Pro 2, which existed after Pro-Am. Used to be Pro-Am Pro.
Right.
And there needed to be some kind of dividing line there, some more filtration to get people to understand what it's like to run a pro program without jumping from the amateurs to the professionals too quickly.
Yeah, I think it's more about the program. Pro 2 is telling you this is what it is. It's not about you. It's not about the car. It's about running a program at this level.
And they get to run and set up next to Pro 1 guys. So they can also get a better idea of what it takes to be that
not
high.
Anymore.
Well, I don't mean run on the track. I mean be in the pits and you see what a Pro 1 team looks like or Pro team looks like.
No, because now they're separate. They're not running
You're still at the same damn event, Paco.
No.
Only one is not at the same event.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just Phoenix.
I thought they changed. Okay, my bad. I thought they changed all the dates. Like
all of them are this. We changed some of the dates around, but Pro 2 is still on Pro weekends, except for the last round, which is its own standalone, which is kind of, you want to. I think eventually we would like to get there. I think it's good right now to have them intermingle because people can learn a lot.
And that's Phoenix, right?
Yeah, but it would be cool if Pro 2 could stand on its own, if it could be its own nationwide.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just remember like a lot of people was complaining about like, oh, we're never gonna be able to pit with the Pro 1 guys, and we wanted
that's
to, like,
just stupid internet stuff.
Yeah.
We are nearing the end of our lovely time here. We have qualifying in Formula Drift Long Beach 2016 tomorrow. It's very exciting. Could be raining though. We'll see. Today. Oh, excuse me. Today. Yeah, this is Friday. So hey, you're listening to this. And thanks Ryan Sage for the save there. Anything else you want to say to the world that listens to the show?
No, I mean it's been really fun. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to a great season and. Appreciate the opportunity to come on the show with you guys.
Well, we very much appreciate it. Should we do a real quick 60-second round of yes/no questions?
Our
power minute.
Yeah, so I don't think we have any good questions from the audience, so it's gotta be us.
Yeah, we burned them. Whatever. So you have 60 seconds to answer with as short, a concise, one line, one sentence questions. You ready?
I get to answer in one sentence.
Yeah, you gotta go quick. Just yes or no. Yes, no, if possible, or one quick sentence.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
I'll fire it up. All right. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite car?
Don't Don't have one.
Car you drive right now?
S4, Audi S4, and I have a X5.
Hell yeah.
Right. If you could live somewhere else that wasn't the United States, what would be the country to go to?
Argentina. Oh.
Why Argentina?
My dad spent some time there. Soft spot.
Nice.
Cool. What's your favorite food?
Probably Thai.
What's your favorite sushi item? Like, the filling on a sushi.
My favorite filling?
Yeah, for sushi, yes.
What does that mean? Like fish? Like on the inside of a roll?
Yeah, I like
Okay.
it. What's your favorite sushi?
I'm going to go with uni. I like exotic stuff.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah.
I like it if it's fresh. But what would you be doing right now if you weren't here?
I would be probably hanging banners.
Okay. Yeah, last one, Paco.
Last one, Jesus. I'm
Why-
nothing, man. You're faster than us.
Why drifting? Just kidding. We did that already. That's where we started. Cool. We will catch you next week and enjoy the weekend's drifting.
Anything you want to add, like, real quick?
We already added that. We're leaving now, Paco.
Are we?
We've done this.
I was saying, like, how do you follow him? Like, how do you...
Oh, yeah. I guess that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Ryan Sage, how do we follow you on the social media?
I think most of mine are at Ryan J. Sage, and then, I think all of them are that, including my Facebook extension, yeah.
Are you in control of at Formula D?
I can get in there if I want to, but
Okay.
no, I
They
don't
got
control
dudes.
it.
It's not you. Okay. Just so people knows.
And don't forget, if you are about to make a really inflammatory, stupid post on the internet about drifting, you can just send it to Ryan first, and he'll probably have a nice response that'll calm you or make you angrier. Who's to say at this point? But he'll at least respond. And you can send inflammatory things to Paco.
Oh, please do. I love those.
At Tofu Drift Fan and 2F Performance.
And at 2 Performance, yes.
And send all your, just shower me with comments and
dick pics too.
No, don't do that. At Drift Idiot. And thanks for listening. Subscribe, share, comment, all the above. See you guys.